Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Fireside Chat. This is our Fireside Chat 50. Like, can you imagine, guys? Like, it's been like 50 episodes. It's been like a long time we're doing that, eh?
Yeah,
So,
if you listen to one episode per week, it would take you almost a year.
yeah, amazing. So, almost a full year of Fireside Chats. So, for you that is, if you are new to this channel, so basically, like the Fireside Chat is an idea that we had. So, I'm Sandro Mancuso. We have Mashooq, Badar, and José Huerta. So we are the managing directors for Codurance. And the idea for the fireside chat came from conversations that we used to have anyway. So after working hours, at least once a week, we would sit down, have a drink, talk about our day, talk about our week, or problems that or things that we want to talk about in our industry, about craftsmanship, agile, project management, and software development in general. And then we said, well, why don't we start recording these and then also give the opportunity for people to contribute to those discussions? And that's how the fireside chats were created. And we don't really plan for that. Like we normally choose a topic, and but we don't really, for example, I don't know what Mesh is going to say or Jose is going to say, or they don't know what I'm going to say. We just choose a topic roughly, like what would be the things that we are going to cover, but that's about it. So the whole discussion will happen live in front of you, and we would also encourage you to join us live if you are on LinkedIn or Twitter, to join the YouTube link, because then you have the live chat, and we would love you to be adding your comment, to sharing your experience, and also asking us questions. And we will be monitoring the live chat. So, oh yes, and then before we start, if you haven't done it already, subscribe to the channel, put a thumbs up, because it helps the video to be promoted to more people. So, okay, so should you hire job hoppers? This is the topic for today. The reason that we chose this topic was I was contacted on LinkedIn. Like we have a few jobs, a few positions available, and one of our key positions, like someone that we were looking for, is a key position. We wanted to have it to be strategic, to stay with us for a long time. And someone came in and say, "Hey, I think I'm a perfect candidate for this role, and I would like to tell you that I'm the best candidate for this role." And then the message was very similar to this, along those lines. And then I looked at this person's profile, and I felt that that person would not be suitable. And one of the criteria that I used, not the only one, but one of the main criteria that I used was, for such a key uh, position, I wanted something that was more stable in that project. So in an employment, and this person had changed jobs multiple times within a very short period of time, and within months she changed a few jobs, and I think that the maximum that she stayed was close to 2 years. And then I shared this story on Twitter, and a lot of people came back to me and say, "Hey, you should have given this person a chance, or you don't know the context, or why would you have this criteria?" Some people was, "Yeah, absolutely, you made the right choice." Others said, "No, you didn't do the right thing." So with this context in mind, we decided, why don't we debate this? So, guys, let's start from, what is a job hopper? So, how do we define a job hopper? Is like, yeah, how would you look at someone's CV and say, like, this person is a job hopper?
I think someone on the channel said job hopper is a person that works at one place less than 2 years. And that's a good place to start. 2 years seems to be kind of almost like a magic number. Um, but I would say it's not just related to it's a pattern. That's how I would say 2 years now in like in the UK, for example, especially in London, in our industry, the average turnover is 1.5 or 1.4 years or something like that. So most people are job hopping in the industry. There is a lot of and there is kind of I think this is something we should discuss as well. Certain market times see certain kind of turmoil where there's events that happen, or suddenly certain markets start rising and people move quite a lot. But it's a pattern over their career where they are often in jobs for a very short amount of time. Um, and that's how I would define a job hopper, is that so they've established a pattern where they are staying at a short amount of time. That short time could be anything from obviously a few weeks to up to even a couple of years if they're doing it over and over and over again. um yeah, that's how I would describe it.
Yeah, Jose, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I think that's a good definition. I would probably say less than a year. Like if you don't stay for more than a year, that then you're kind of hoping. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, for me, like the when you look at the patterns, because like of course that we all have been in the two sides of the table, right? So we will in the past we worked for companies, we changed jobs a few times ourselves, and now we've been working for the same company, like in uh, how can I say, in a position where we hire people. So we normally see the other side, and we see different patterns as well because we see people that are a bit more erratic, but not in the sense of like they're it's not a good. For example, we see people that sometimes they have like a 40-year employment in one company, and then they go for a 3 months in another one, and then another 3 years in one, and then so those people that have a mix of employments, I would not consider a job hopper because like sometimes they go to a place, they stay longer if they like, and then they try something else, maybe for whatever reason didn't work out, and there can be many reasons. And then they stabilize again. But for me, a job hopper is someone that, like, when I look at their employment history, like, and I see a pattern of like 4 or 5 employments where the maximum that they stayed was closer to 2 years or 2 years, like, and all the other ones are on average is a year or less. And that is for me someone that I would consider like this person is job hopping. Of course, that at that point we don't have the information of why that person changed. We only have the information that that person changed, and then the discussion was, okay, so with that little information, I mean, like, you can see the employment history. If this person was looking for a job and you are in a position to hire, should we hire, or I mean, should we give the opportunity for this person to come to the interview? And that is the, I think, the part of the conversation. So
Well, I
yeah.
think we should start with why do people jump off? No, because there
Mhm.
are, if people do it, it's for a reason. And I think for me there are three main areas. No, one is let's say you're doing it to acquire new skills, right? I don't know if you're a developer, you want to try cloud, or you want to try mobile development or whatever, right? And then you switch, no, to kind of gather those skills. Another reason would be again a breadth of experience, maybe working in different sectors, working in different types of companies, startups, product companies, etc., etc. Yeah, and then there is the career advancement kind of thing. No, salary or title or that kind of stuff. And I think for me those are the three main. No, there may be
Yeah.
a driver for job hopping around, again, the first two are more related to growth, or I would say, or learning. For me, the other is more related to compensation or um,
I think there are others. You've only mentioned the positive ones. But there are others as well. There is one. So I'm kind of talking about like almost like type forms, right? So there is a type which is they they know how to do good interviews, but not really that good at their job. Or they have or they have often don't get on with their coworkers, so they kind of takes them a bit of time to then have a kind of like, you could have, for example, quite an abrasive personality, right? And you start building negative social credits with your coworkers.
Nobody
You
stands
know,
to you, no, kind of thing. That the most that they will, be willing to tolerate you is no.
is this many months, right? After
Yeah,
that,
exactly.
things come to come to a head, as it were. So there are other reasons why, there are kind of obviously more constructive reasons, but there are also more, let's say, reasons that are don't make you a good bet for a business, as it were, because that's the context that we are discussing it in. Is like, we are looking to hire someone. You look at a job hopper as someone who's been changing their jobs quite frequently, of course, but then that has to play a part, because actually hiring someone can be quite an expensive process, training them up, getting them embedded into the organization, all those kind of things. And if you think, well, you always look at past behaviors to predict the future, right? And you think, well, in the past, if this person has been in 10 different roles with less than 1 year in each role, what makes you so special that they will now spend a while with you?
Yeah, there is like, for example, like one of the things in our chat. By the way, the people that are on LinkedIn, if you want to interact with more, it's easier for us sometimes to answer or reply on YouTube than on LinkedIn. But like, we have your question, Glauber. So two things in here. That talking about test on YouTube said, what about happiness? And then Glauber was on LinkedIn said, like, what if you had two candidates, but one explicitly says that he's a that this person is a freelancer, the other one hides that. Does it change? And they have similar kind of periods of employment. I'm just trying to summarize because it's quite long. So would one be considered job hopper or have a red flag for overworking? What are the considerations here? So for me, I'll tackle both things. One is more related to for talking about testing questions. He came from a personal perspective that the person left multiple jobs and the criteria used was happiness. So I got some similar things, like people saying like happiness or the culture of the organization, which is related to happiness, but all the different aspects that would make you unhappy. The thing here is that it's very difficult to know what was the reasons that that person left. But if, let's say, we are interviewing that person and the person will use that criteria, for me, that would be a red flag. Because like a person that, one thing is to say, look, I was very happy in one job, I left because I thought it was a great opportunity, then I joined another company, and that was not a good place for me. And I was very unhappy, and then that's why I left. But when that happens, and I would take that, sometimes you join an organization and it's not a good fit, right? So you're not happy there, whatever the situation. But you cannot use happiness as an excuse for 5 jobs in a row. Because a person that for 5 jobs in a row cannot find happiness, then we need to ask ourselves, like, is it
what is the common denominator in this equation?
Exactly. What is the common denominator? Exactly. So is it the person that has a very high bar for happiness, or like she was really unlucky not to find a single place out of 5? So for me, that would be a massive. I would
Before
not
you go
take that well.
into the other one, there may be a generational aspect to that as well. I think, but I don't know. Maybe it's my impression, but I think we have more job hoppers now than we had in the past, at least in the industry. And it could be for a lot of reasons. You mentioned, the market and all that stuff. But I think there's a generational aspect to that. No, that is these, do what you love, and fast results.
I mean,
getting impatient and wanting results really quickly, and the whole entitlement kind of mindset. No, I deserve.
Okay, boomer.
I'm actually a millennial, so
that's what the boomers say.
But maybe I do have a boomer mindset.
But Yeah, although I would like to understand, like during the .com bubble, I'd like to see if there was a similar problem with job hopping. I think they might. I think markets play a big role. It's not just a. There might be a generational aspect, but markets play a huge role in, if there's someone calling you and some in your inbox you're getting offers and recruiters are harassing you, there's a bigger chance that you may look at other things, right?
But there was like, for example, one guy that replied to me on Twitter, like he was saying, like, look, during COVID, things became very unstable, and I work mostly for startups, and that time was I changed jobs a few times during that period because everything was unstable. Not only the whole thing about working from home and stuff, but businesses were unstable. And we went, for example, I remember I was in the UK during 2008, 2009, where we were in a recession in the UK, and I was made redundant at the time myself. And that, of course, shows in my CV. I was in a company, then I left, and I tried to do a startup, and then went back to the same company a year later. But so
But
I
is
didn't
that
leave
job
because I
hopping?
wanted.
But is that job
No,
hopping? Because
no,
if
no.
you are made redundant,
No
then you're
pattern.
not choosing
No,
to
no,
leave. Eh?
but this is the thing, because like when you look at someone's CV or job history, you don't know the reasons why they left. For example, I had a shorter tenure in one company that I liked. I would not leave that company, but I was made redundant. I had to leave, and then I tried to do something else that didn't work, and then I got a job back in the same company. But when someone looks at my CV, they will not have that history unless that I tell them what was the reasons. But I just wanted to go back to what Glauber was asking, because there is an economical aspect, but you need to really place when those changes happened, as you said, Mesh. Like, was it COVID? Was it a recession in 2009 or whatever? Was it like the .com, the or 2000 or whatever? So, but then there is an aspect of the kind of employment. This is the point that Glauber, I think that you were trying to make, was if someone says I'm a freelancer and someone doesn't, so the nature of the work that the person is offering is different as well. Because someone might say, look, I want to become a freelancer and I offer, let's say, I want to offer, I'm a closure developer and I do closure or I do something else, right? So you specialize in one thing and you offer that service, and then you go in, you do that job and you move on, you do the job again and you move on and do the job, but it's always within that specialty. Is it different, the perception, from someone that omits that information? So you would infer that that person is a permanent. Answering your question, Glover, I would. If I see that someone is a contractor or a freelancer and someone that doesn't provide me that information, and that's the only thing I have, because I think that is important to everyone that is listening, that CVs exist for a reason, right? So when you are hiring, you cannot speak to every single person in the world. You need to do a triage. And that triage, every company, every person will have a criteria. And the depending on what you are looking for, and that the employment history is a criteria. And for example, if I'm looking at freelancer, I will look at this person potentially with good eyes. I need a freelancer to do some closure work for me because I just have a very short stuff that I need done, and I need a specialist, and that would be the right thing to do. Get the freelancer, get that job done. Thank you very much. You go on your way. But if I'm looking for someone that, hey, we are building a culture, I want someone to join organizations, has the right mindset, like buy into the culture. I want this person to stay with us, and the job is far more broader than, hey, currently we have a closure project, but in the future we can have something else. Then that short stance they will play against, because that's not what I'm looking for when I'm hiring.
But the expectations are different, right? Because if you are a freelancer, you are self-employed. Yeah. So it's not like you're changing jobs. You're being faithful, let's say, to your job. It's just you're working with different clients. The context of what you're doing is different, and the expectations that someone hiring you has, I think, are different as well.
But there are freelancers and there are freelancers as well. In a lot of cases, when we talk about freelancers, we actually mean just a contract, not the service that they're offering. If you are offering a generic service as a software developer, I'm sorry, but you're not a freelancer. You just get paid on a contractual terms. So, like and then, we've had, for example, contractors that work with us. The only difference between them and our permanent employees, or and IR35 kind of, put an end to that. But the only difference was with the way they were paid. Right. In
They
fact,
were
some of the
with us for
contractors had been
years.
with us longer than most permanent people. And
True,
that's not a
very true.
freelancer. They are offering a generic skill. They're not offering a service. Right. So, and they come to you and they get paid by, the day, and you decide how they work, you direct their work, you even help with their career development, you're helping with their all those things. They are, for all intents and purposes,
They just have a different
employees paid
contractual
in different
model,
way.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
they're just paid in a different way, a different contractual model, but they are treated as
Ex-
normal.
so if a software developer is saying, well, actually I can't stick at projects. I mean, I've got 6 month tenure on all projects because I am a freelancer. Well, okay, what I would like to understand is, it's like, what service I'm hiring. I'm actually hiring a developer to come and work on my team and be part of that team for the long term and establish themselves in that. I would hire a freelancer, a contractor who is being paid in a different way, but I am expecting all the same behaviors that I would expect from the other 5 permanent people in the same team. Then I would see if their tenure is very short, because good contractors, and I've worked with many who have this generic uh, offering. They're offering their skills as software developers or whatever else. They don't usually just stay there for their first contract of 3 months or 6 months. They establish themselves, and they're very good at doing so as well. They have certain skills because it's their business, and they have much more wider variety of skills and flexibility and communication and even leadership skills, and they end up staying in places longer than most permanents do. So that's where I would draw the line. It's like, a freelancer, are you offering a very well defined service for a very agreed period of time, where the expectation is that you would offer this service and you would move on? That's a proper freelancer.
Yeah.
That's
So
how I
there
see
is, yeah, I see similar way. There is another related situation. I remember like one of the guys that, well, in fact, more than one, like a few people actually mentioned working for startups, and they said, look, but would you judge me? But like, I normally work for startups, and that is kind of like the might justify my short employment. I have a problem with that excuse. If I'm hiring for someone like that, I expect that person to have a long-term employment with us. The Because, like, for example, although I understand that the startup environment, mainly if you are really talking about early stage startups and not the scale ups, uh, though I understand that context is more volatile. A lot of those companies, they will not make it, right? So they're always under tight financial constraints. So I get all of that. But also a startup, because they don't have money just to spend as they wish, which means that every hire that they make needs to be very important for them, because they don't have a lot of money to waste. So if they hire you, and then I would, for example, for me, it would be a bad sign if you work for, like, in 2 or 3 years, you work for 5 different startups. Then I would be thinking like, okay, so either you didn't contribute. So if they all died, we are really unlucky. And if they all died and it's not your fault, you had nothing to do with it, you are very unlucky. But like, most probably what I would be asking myself is like, why were you not able to help them to the point that they succeeded? Or what was the condition for you not to be with them for more than a few months? Or like, so for me, it's still a smell. I would still, for me, would be a red flag in there. And I said, look, I would think twice before speaking to that person, because what I would rather see is like, look, I worked for few startups for a long time, and then, like, for example, I took them at the early stages and I helped them to grow to the next stage, and then I left and start again, because that's the kind of work I like doing. And if that's the case, I'm okay with that. But then I would also ask myself, are we a startup? Are we the kind of people that would provide an environment that this person would be interested to work for? Or this
And that
person
we
is,
would benefit from as well. Yeah.
exactly, because then we also
Yeah.
need to analyze that, right? And probably, yeah.
Totally. The question, Sandro, about what about Peter Principle by Kevin? I think I know what
Mhm.
Kevin means, is that you can be promoted into a role that you are no longer equipped for. You are then judged by that role. Of course, you may have had pay rises and everything related to that. You don't perform well on that role and you move on. But now, because you have experience of that role, you could probably talk about it. You can talk well about it even. But your expectation for compensation are higher, but you can't do that role anymore. But you can still get another job with the same role because you know it, you understand it, you can pass an interview. And I think that's what it means, that Peter Principle can lead to job hopping, is that you've got plenty, you are hopping from one role to the next because the level at which you are is beyond your current capability, but your expectation for compensation are higher than what market would pay for your true skills. And I think that's where it could be a very good reason for people job
Yeah,
hopping as well.
Kevin, because my understanding, Mash, of the Peter Prince was similar, but Kevin just clarified that. I think he came through that from a slightly different point. I don't know, Jose, if you want to take this one as well. It's like,
No. And I think it's particularly in that case, the market plays a big part on that, because if you're a shit manager or whatever, and there's no, people are not killing for hire managers, right? Then that's not gonna fly, even if you are, when there's not a lot of demand, no, then that's not gonna fly, right? So I think for our sector, especially in the last years, let's say, there's been a lot of demand, and maybe that can be the case in that kind of context. I'm not saying just in our industry, no.
Mhm.
But when that's not the case, it's doubtful.
But yeah, I think like you can, if you're not capable, you can still get jobs, especially in the software industry, because as you said, there is so much demand. There's so many jobs, and not everyone is people get it wrong. So if you just play the laws of average, you apply for 50 jobs, you're gonna get one or two. You're just gonna end up saying the right thing, right? So that's one thing. And the other thing is that, especially in software development, people are hiring so much and so often that their processes, their hiring processes tend to weaken, and that's
it
also you
becomes,
can get through those.
it might become even a numbers game as well. Let's say, for example, some companies might say, like, we need to hire 50 developers, right? And we know that you need to interview a lot of people to get to them. So some companies will have like a ratio of 10 to 1, even 20 to 1 sometimes. So if they're going to hire 50, they might say, look, we need to interview how many now? Like 1,000 people to get 50? So in the worst case scenario, maybe 500 to get 50. So then, as you were saying, Ash, they might say, you know what, lower the bar a bit, even if we have a few bad hires. But like if you hire 50 people and have 5 bad hires, they might be okay with that. But it's still the and then some of those 5 will probably not make for too long. But the thing is, one thing is to lower the bar and hire more people. But like, for example, going back to what Kevin was saying, Kevin. So I understand that someone searching for opportunities to the point where now they managed to get the job and now they're not capable of doing the job. And at that point, they, for whatever reason, right, that job was terminated because probably both parts were not happy. But then This person went for another job for the same position and didn't work again. And then another one, because a job hopping means that you did it a few times, not just once. Yeah. So if I look at the history and the person had a similar position and changed a few times, and if I'm hiring for that position, I probably would not hire that person. So if I need to have a criteria and there is a limited amount of people that I would talk to, I would try to elect the best CVs. And if my expectation for that role is a long-term engagement with that person because it's a strategic role and stuff, that person would not make the cut. That's how I see that. Right.
Hey, so what are the to do a little bit devil's advocate here?
Mhm.
Yeah. What are the pros of hiring a job hopper? So why would you know, what would tip the scale, no, for you to do it?
I
Pros of
am.
hiring a job
You
hopper.
go, actually.
Yeah, like what would exactly? Maybe not pros because you can come up with a bunch of pros. No, but let's say in your case, no, it's clear, Sandro, what your assessment of the situation would be, because you know long term is kind of is a big thing. No, like we hire people that we want and we want them to stay with us for a very long time, right? And that kind of pattern already sets a precedent, no, on lack of commitment or whatever, right? Potential lack of commitment. Now, what would tip the scale for you to say, okay,
Well,
let's hire someone
they,
even with this?
even if they have a like, yeah, even if you know that they're gonna leave soon, right?
But let's say that there is that risk, yes.
Yeah, the risk is that they're gonna leave soon. Well,
By the way, the
then
risk
it's a
is always
tactic.
there. It's just, you know, you have some red flag, whatever you want to call it, no, or
You
Yeah,
have
it's a higher
more
more
risk.
data. You have more
information.
data
It's
that it
Yeah,
can
you
happen
have
it's
because
more
people
data
can
it's a
that
leave
higher
even
risk.
if
increases
they
the
don't change it.
chances.
You know.
Yeah,
It's a higher risk that they will leave soon.
yeah.
And I personally, the only reason I would hire that person is for a tactical reason, because they are a tactical hire at that point.
Yeah.
And the tactical reason would be that they have a certain skill that I need immediately. So time pressures, it doesn't matter, because they will come and they will do a particular job, and if they leave, that they are easy to replace, you know. Or I have a finite kind of lifespan on that particular thing that I'm hiring for. So it would have to be a tactical thing. I'm assuming that you're not talking about people that are on the other spectrum, where they've been in jobs for a very long time, right? You're talking about specifically job hoppers, and the only way I would hire someone who I know that have a high risk of leaving the organization fairly quickly is that if I just need someone for just a small amount of time,
It's a
or I
more
really need that
commodity.
skill and I'm struggling to find it elsewhere.
Yeah, because for me that is a more commodity kind of role, and then if it works, great. If it doesn't, that's okay as well. But there is also, for example, because I would consider if there is a very specific skill that I need for a short period of time, but it's still quite important, although time-wise not so much, I would consider a freelancer or a contractor, right? So then you get someone that is specialized in a discipline that is happy just to come in to do that job. So you have a contract for that job, and if that work is finished, then thank you very much. You find your next contract, and we keep going as we are. So I would favor that when the need that we have is very specialized, but it's a short period of time. But even for a longer term position, like most of the people that we hire, and it's not for a very specific role, it's like, look, we are a service company, we have multiple clients and projects and stuff, and we want you to grow with us. And that person, like I would favor someone that is a bit more stable, because we need that stability within our teams, within our clients. And so I would always struggle with a permanent job hopper, you know. I think unless they have something really unique unless they can complement, there is something in their CV, or they were recommended by someone. So we have more than just their job history. Then I probably would entertain. But if the only thing I have is like, let's say I have one position, I have 10 CVs to go through, and I need to select 5 to do the interviews, I would struggle to have that person in.
Jose, do you have any other
I
reasons?
don't have a so let me put it this way. For me, it depends on the expectations on that role. For me, someone joining and being with the company for a year and a half, that's good enough. Like, you know, if they people want to move on, that's fine. They did their due, right? Like, I don't consider that a bad investment, so to speak. Of course, if you know they need to do a good job, right? Like, we're talking about someone who joins, does a good job, and then decides to leave for whatever reason. Yeah, I'm not talking about someone who's underperforming or whatever, right? So for me, that wouldn't be such a big deal, unless it's a role that that is, you know, an executive role, or someone that that is kind of like a cornerstone, no, or keystone for something. Yeah, then I would have an issue with that, right?
But there is an
And
important point, isn't it, Jose? I mean, they've done their due. If you consider someone to be a job hopper, there is a certain level of transactionality involved in that. I mean, well, I know that it's impossible to avoid, and I know that a business is a business. There is a transaction happening, but it's not only a transaction, right? Because actually hiring someone is difficult. Getting them embedded into a team is difficult, and when they leave, it's also difficult for the whole team. So it's actually a quite a traumatic process, people coming in and going out of the team. I'm traumatic, I'm using the word a bit lightly, right? But and I would try to minimize that. I would not, like, as someone who is trying to create stable, well established people who know each
mhm,
other, they know how to work well with each other and so on.
mhm.
I would be looking to maximize the average tenure of the team members, and I would not
And
take
I would
the
as
light
well, but
for
that doesn't mean.
for
Listen,
the
I
average.
think this is a case of this is a bit of a case of guilty until proven in you know, proven innocent kind of thing, right? Because what we're saying is we're seeing a pattern, yeah, and that pattern may stop at any
Yeah, but
point.
Jose, let
This
me
is the
ask you a
thing.
different question. Let me ask it differently, right? If you take that to an extreme, yeah, and
Mhm.
you could hire 10 people who are all job hoppers, given that same criteria, would you hire all 10 of them? Because your chances are going to go through the roof of a
Of
volatile
one of
team.
those actually leaving, yeah, yeah, for sure. I understand what you mean. Do I want to maximize that? No, I don't want to maximize that. If I can avoid it, I will avoid it. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm
Mhm.
saying is I don't give such a strong way to that aspect. I give it a much more. I give much more weight to how they did in the interview. Are they? Do I think that they're a good cultural fit? Do I like? Is it what I see? Is it something that I want to keep? Basically
Mhm.
is what I give more weight to. And yes, you know, there is that data point of, you know, where they were in companies or whatever. And you know, it also for me it also depends on the role, right? Like, and this is important. Like, not only the corner store corner store the cornerstone aspect that I was saying before, but also, you know, what kind of role it is. Like, if it's a salesperson, for instance, especially in our industry, you would need more than a year for sure in order to bring results anywhere. You know what I mean? So then that for me would be that would take precedence over, you know, someone else. But in our industry, like, if it's a developer, I don't know. I would focus more on what do I see. You know, are they a good cultural fit? Are they, you know, do they have the right skills, etc., etc. Right? And then, I will make
Certainly,
I will make a
certainly I
point
would
of
focus.
evaluating them properly. No.
No, but
Uh,
certainly I would focus more. But I think Sandro may raise this point early as well, right? You've got 60 CVs sat in front of you, right? And you're gonna triage. And I
okay. But
and
this is what I said before as well. It depends on the market conditions as well, right? The question that you asked me is what would I do, right? Like
Mhm,
all things being equal, if I can avoid the risk, I will choose to avoid the risk. That's clear. Yeah.
mhm,
Now I don't put that much of a weight on that particular aspect. Yeah.
mhm,
I would still interview the guy. Let's say this. No, I would still interview the guy and see if I want to bring him in or not.
mhm.
Yeah,
But
That's
I
what I
think
mean.
it
that,
would be one
yeah.
aspect that would matter, right? It would be like you look at weighing differently. And I totally agree with you. It's not the main thing, right? In triage, if you got 50 CVs, I would definitely look at it. Even when I'm looking at someone later on, and remember, interview itself is a very fallible process, right? Some people are brilliant at interviews. CV, your tenure doesn't lie, but you can actually create very different impressions within an interview. So I think these things matter. But what I'm saying is that the your tenure, your previous job history matters in terms of as part of the decision making process that I employ, in including all the other things. And of course, if they're really impressive, but I see that they're job hopping, but I actually I often actually ask
I
this
would
question on
ask
the
them
interview.
about that. I would ask
Yeah,
them about that and
Yeah,
see
but
yeah, exactly.
how they
I
react.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it depends of where they are as well. Because for example, if they were job hopping and then they stabilized, so at which point do I get to speak to them? Where the point that they were very unstable, or the point that they went over that hump and now they are more stable? Because like the thing is, like I remember in the Twitter discussion that originated this talk, like someone mentioned something like that. Oh, I had someone that was a job hopper. We interviewed this person. We heard that the person's side of the story, and we provided a great environment for that person. This person has been with the company for 10 years or more, or what. So my answer to that was try not to take an exceptional case and make it the rule. Because like, although I agree, like I believe this person, I don't think that this person was lying. I believe that this person was telling, given a real example of someone that was job hopping, and then that person found a place where she wanted to stay and grow. But the thing is, what I was trying to say, and that's what Mash's point as well. When you are hiring as a company, you have a limited amount of time and that you can spend for certain interview process, because the interview process is quite costly as well. Not only one person is involved; it's multiple people are involved, and then you need to filter. If you have just one position open and you have just two or three CVs that you have, yes, even a job hopper, I would interview as well because I only have three options, right? So you want to maximize the chances of finding the right person to that, and it would give an opportunity to someone. But if I, instead of having three CVs to one role, I have 30 to one role, I need to have a criteria, and that
Yeah.
is one that I would use to say, look, you know what, this person is very unstable, and I don't have the time. I have far other people that are similar in skills, but they are far more stable. And what I'm looking for is stability, is continuity. Then this person would be this person would not pass that criteria. As there might be other things in their CV. This
It,
one thing was important that everyone remembers, that although we are focusing on the tenure or the employment history, a CV is how a person, like including ourselves, we sell ourselves. I say, look, if I'm looking for jobs, my CV is me trying to sell myself and say, look, this is who I am as a professional, and I can be whoever I want. If I want to be someone that wants to experiment and job hop and get the experience and get the money and stuff, I'm entitled to do that. As a professional, I should do whatever is best for me in my career. But my CV, when I'm looking for a job, that's what people will see. Some people will relate to my CV, other people will not relate to my CV. And they will use a criteria for that relationship. One might be skills or whatever else, or industry experience or technology experience. And others might be tenure, employment history, time that I stayed in places. And for critical roles, or even like for different roles, for example, a developer versus a salesperson, right? So a salesperson that stays 6 months in a job, I would not bring to the interview at all, because like if you want a salesperson is quite a key important thing to drive business growth. And if you cannot even stay more than 6 months, means that you are not contributing at all. And I think that someone else mentioned that. I think that was, I don't remember, it was Herman. Herman mentioned the transactionality of the job, and Kevin also mentioned that. Something like that. If you don't stay for too long in a job, you don't learn. You don't go through the full cycle of joining a company, learning their business, getting up to speed to the point that you are productive, and then be there for longer to make sure that the decisions that you made actually were sound. They made sense. Because if you are never there after to see the result of your decisions, you always feel that you made good decisions, right? So, and I would rather see that someone that stayed for longer in multiple places to see the impact of their decisions over time.
Yeah, again, I don't think we disagree on that. Like, I think we all understand that that is an asset. No, that experience and that also show of commitment, and because it's the other thing. No, like if you're constantly changing and it's because of happiness or whatever, right? Like, again, it's like maybe the problem is not every job that you had, right? Like maybe you should do some introspection and figure out what it is that you really want. No, because people cannot read your mind or whatever, right? But if you take that aside, no, and going to Mash's question before, my objective is not to maximize whether people will will leave. That's not what I'm maximizing. No, what I'm maximizing is, am I finding the right person to do this, right? And if I have other options, then I have other options. If those options are right, then I'll end up hiring those options. Yeah. It's just another, what I meant by that is it's just another data point. No, it is an important data point. It's something that you need to keep in mind, but it is,
It's
you
not the
don't make the decision
only
based on
reason.
one data point. Yeah, it's what I mean.
It's not the only decision, but it is an important one, as you said. And it
Mhm.
can, I think, but the important thing what we are getting at is that people, it can work against you when the competition is strong,
Hmm.
right? So when you have a lot of
Yeah.
CVs sitting on your table, you'll be triaged out for that reason. When you got a bunch of people, you got an interview, and you got a bunch of people who are at similar level, you're gonna be more, you know, this area is gonna impact your chances. So I think that goes without saying. I personally would not think that is the only reason that you wouldn't hire somebody. That's definitely not the case. I mean, but it is an important point, and it could, when you are dealing with a lot of competition, it could mean that you're not getting in front of people, or you're not getting the chances that you would like to have.
Yeah, and this like Fran Clement was saying like, what about the lack of horizontal career path out there and its relationship with more responsibility, salary, etc. in those non-residual situations? Seem like changing job is the only way to grow up. So, Fran, my view
Sorry,
on this,
to grow up, no, to get more money. That's not what
and
he
that is true
didn't
for
mean to grow
Or
up. He meant to.
get new opportunities as well. I think there is an
no.
important point that if you
Yeah,
might
he
hit a
mentioned
glass
lack of
ceiling, and you may
horizontal
be
career path. Yeah.
changing jobs. Yeah, yeah.
So Fran, like I take the point. So I think that there are two sides to your question here. One is to understand why people would change jobs. Yeah. And like someone else mentioned earlier on, like they mentioned happiness. Like what you were saying here is like opportunities to grow, not only in responsibilities but also financially as well and stuff. And I find that this is a legit reason for you to want to change jobs. But if you do that, if that's the always the reason that you are changing jobs, like 6 months later, 1 year later, and you are changing jobs in such a short period of time, I would question if those reasons are real. For example, if you didn't find the opportunities that we were looking for across so many different organizations in such a short period of time. My perception of that is that the the expectations of this person is unrealistic because no other company could offer what this person is looking for. So that's how I would see that. Although in one occasion, two occasions, maybe apart from each other, the what you mentioned, Fran, are
And
legit reasons for leaving.
this is quite an important point, because when you do it because you want the exposure to other context and or gain skills and so on, when the reason that you're changing jobs is to continue growing, normally you wouldn't expect that growth to happen in 6 months. You know what I mean? That growth should probably, and the more you advance in your career, it should probably take longer. Right? Because it tends to plateau at some point, right? Like at the beginning you learn a lot, and then every time that the more you want to learn, the longer it takes for you to get that 10% extra, right? So that's the thing. Like it's difficult for me to believe that that is the main reason that someone is doing it. No, they need to have bad luck. No, they decided to change, and then they went to a very toxic place that they didn't see during the interview process. No, and they got completely tricked or whatever. But how many times is that going to happen to you?
Exactly.
You know what I
So
mean?
there is a good,
So again, it's there, right? Like it's kind of visible as well in there. No.
yeah. There is a good 2 points from talking about testing and Kevin as well. I don't know, Mesh, if you would like to take them, but like, for example, talking about testing is saying what companies should do on their side for people not to hop. And Kevin is along similar lines. Listening to the opinions, I believe that the problem of talent retention may play an important role in not changing jobs. So I don't know if you'd like to address that, Mesh, because we.
Yeah, there are. I think this is a slightly separate topic, right? Because there is definitely a problem with uh, people retention on average in our industry, right? Part of it, so there are certain things that you can influence and other things that you can't. But there is a problem, even internally, that people we are if you get it, we are competing more and more on kind of this autonomy, mastery, purpose, providing that place for people to flourish. And as a business we need to do that, right? Because not most people on average don't leave because they are opportunistic or that they don't get on with people or all those kind of things. They leave because they're not satisfied with the work, and they are that you can talk about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. That is from Dan Pink and all those kind of things. And there's a lot of things that we do try to do around that within our organization, and we need to do that. So I think that's one side from a business perspective, to make sure that you provide that good place for people to stay for as long as they can, right? But on the other hand, what we are talking about is, regardless of what you do, there are certain types of people, personalities, or wherever they are within their life, that they will job hop. So there is always external, let's say, factors that people will use to leave regardless of what you do, and that you can't do nothing about. And I think what we are talking about is that, because we are making the assumption that when someone has a pattern of leaving many jobs, many companies, then then the problem is more likely with them and not with the company, because they're not, they're not fitting, as you said, their expectations might be quite unrealistic,
Well,
right?
there
So,
may be problems with the company, but that wouldn't be like the main, like, even if, yeah, that wouldn't be the main contributor, I would say.
well, and exactly, there is another point, that there is no perfect organization. Every organization has problems, right? It's a given. And when you go into a particular place, reality bites, and certain things were as you expected, other things may be better, but other things may be worse. Or, you might find it more difficult than you thought you would. But there is a certain element of learning where you meet a challenge, there is resistance, and then certain kind of people, they actually tackle it head on. And of course, there is a limit to these things. But and there are other kind of personalities where there is such a great level of entitlement, let's just say, that they are always, slight thing that goes wrong, or they're not looking to solve those problems. They're looking for others to solve it, and if others don't solve it for
There's
them,
very little
they're
resilience,
gonna move
and
on.
they said very little resilience, yeah, and
Yes.
agency, or
Leadership
awareness that
even.
that
Yes.
they can lead and change things, and own the situation and really change it. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
Yes.
I think
that's what I was that was what I was referring to before, when you say, okay, boomer or whatever, right? But that's what I meant, as well, right? Like that idea of, there's no, this should, everything should be easy, right? Like everything should flow. No, man, that's not how the world works.
yeah.
A lot of things you need to work your ass off to
Yeah.
get them to
I,
work, right?
exactly, because this plays well with like what Fran Clement added more information. He said, like in the case that he was mentioning, until someone finds a place where these things are valued. And then he mentioned, like, thanks for the kind words about my talks and my book, Fran. But then he makes the point about, like, someone needs to find the place. And Alexon Fortes also said something like, imagine you are in a place where there is zero software craftsmanship and people do not want to change. Would you stay there? So those two things, like, are related. So if you just say that, Alexon, yes, maybe there are some expectations that I would have. Maybe, like, not that the craftsmanship values are, for example, that they have all the practices and the ways of working that I want, but at least they are willing to, they are open to new ideas to be discussed and stuff. Of course, that if I feel that we are very incompatible, let's say, yes, I probably would not stay there. But how many times would I use that excuse? And I think this is where what Mash and Jose were saying is, like, one thing is just to think, I will create the ideal world in my head, yeah. And then when I join, if that company doesn't match my ideal world, I will blame the company and leave. While on, like, for example, Fran, you mentioned my book a few times, and us being better at identifying company patterns and the metadata, as you pointed in there. But I also talk a lot in my book of personal responsibility, of us driving the change. So while we need to be better at choosing a company that is more aligned to what we want to do, I also wrote a lot about personal responsibility in what can we do to change those places and take responsibility to be that change ourselves. And when after failing for a long time and really exhausting all the other possibilities, and say, you know what, we are really incompatible, so I'm gonna leave. But, like, I cannot use that excuse too many times, right? So if every company I say that the company is wrong because they don't have the same values, either I suck at finding the good companies to work for, or I'm not very good at convincing anyone about my view of the world. And that's, for me, is a problem. So the let me see, there is Garai just came in. I did hop for a few years out of our circumstance that had nothing to do with my willingness to stay. And there's also that brilliant people in their mid-career growth, faster, blah, blah. So I think that there is a point in here that you might be at a period of your life that you are hopping, that you don't really know what you really want, or you have ideas, you join, you made a mistake, or you join, something else happened. So let's say that you were unlucky for a few times. I understand that this might be the case. Like because I know some of you on the channel, I know that some of you, for example, you had to move countries, or you had COVID, or you work for a startup where things didn't go well. So, but you cannot use that excuse forever, right? So there will be, you need to understand that regardless of what happened, that will be in your CV. And some companies will not even bring you to an interview. And when they bring you to an interview, you better have a very good reason, be able to explain that well. I said, look, you know what, that was my situation. I had this personal situation in my life. I changed countries, or I worked with a startup that I was in love with. Unfortunately, we worked our ass off. We did everything we could, and unfortunately, the business model didn't prove right. So, and those are valid things to say. But if you only have a sequence of those things, you need to understand that is part of your CV, it's part of how people will see you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and it's I mean, in the case where, because someone was saying, no, you go to a place, they don't, I don't know, they don't value craftsmanship or whatever, right? But that's one change. And what we're talking about when we're talking about job hoppers here, and this is part of the definition that we gave at the beginning, is there is a pattern, right? Like there's not one event that you have there. It's like there's a series of events that already show you, no, that pattern. And that wouldn't be the case. No, like finding one bad place is not job hopping. It's having bad luck. No, but when it is a pattern, then you see it, and people will give it more weight or not, or decide how to treat you, or if they want to even interview with you. No?
Yeah. There was a thing that talking about testing said, like, what about the excuse of life is too short? I just want to really emphasize a point because I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm all in favor for everyone to do whatever they want with their careers. They should do what is best for them. Yeah. So I wrote a full book on personal relationship and career and stuff. So I think that people should do what they feel that is right for them. But the point that I'm trying to make in here, do what is right for you, but you cannot control how you're going to be perceived by other people. So your actions and your decisions and the way that you conduct your professional life, it will generate, like, people that will need to hire you, they will see your decisions in a certain way. Some of them will like the decisions that you made. Some of them will not like. Some of them will find that you're suitable for what they need. Some of them will find that you are not suitable for what they need. And you just need to be aware of that. So by all means, lead your career, lead your lives the way that you want it to be, but be aware that you are not alone in the world, right? Either you have your own company and do your own thing somehow, but you still will need to interact with other people, that you need to sell your service, that you need to pay money for what you provide. And you need to be worried, like, as a professional, of the image that you are portraying, right? So, and that's what you need to be very aware. So, yeah, is there anything else?
No, I think that there's a lot of stuff that you can attach to job hopping. And someone was saying, "Oh, I'm worried that they don't take enough time to really understand the context. Therefore, they don't really develop any skill. They don't have time to develop any skills. Therefore, that whole idea of bringing different experiences from different places, or industries or different skills may not at all be a reality, right? Because they don't have enough time to develop those. So when they come, they may have a little bit of a coat of paint, no, but that's about it. As well as if they're already thinking that they will be living in a short time, they may not be committed or not build the relationships within the organization that actually helps with doing the work, right? And with really helping the organization evolve as well. So there's lots of stuff that you can attach to that. I think that there might be some potentially let's say positives to that, no? And again, I'm not going on the, they're only doing it for the money. I'm thinking, okay, they really do, my idea of this job hopper is like, if you stay more than year and a half, then for me, you had enough time to really develop certain skills, or at least understand well enough the context. If it's more, whatever, right? But that's it. And I think in those cases, people who come in may even have the let's say the pressure to perform, or they will even be willing to take on harder challenges. Yeah. And that's an asset as well, right? Like, if they do have the skills, if they do have that drive, no, because let's say that they're doing it because they want to get the skills, or they want to get that, especially they are doing it to really dig in, no, and get messy, not to be comfortable, right, or not to be, whatever. And those things, I think, are positives, no, in that sense. Do you see any other positives that you would say, okay, maybe, this is something that it would bring?
Well, people changing jobs quite often.
No, people changing. Let's say that people who've had those different contexts, no, and they've had that possibility to bring in new skills as well. Like, for instance, whether you like it or not, they've been in different contexts. They do. There is some cross pollination that could happen. Someone, I wrote a little poll on Twitter. Should you hire job hoppers, yay or nay, or serious? So, and some people ask, or it could be like the bees in open space, or the butterflies in open, like people who are moving from one room to another in an open space, and they're kind of cross pollinating, no, bringing ideas from one place to the other. I think that is in itself could be an asset, right? Like, when you have
but you don't have to use job hoppers for that.
No, I agree. I agree. I am trying to find some
attrition anyway, right?
I agree. I am trying to find some positive in the whole thing, right? Like, you don't want to be doom and gloom on everything, basically.
Like, I tried. I normally, like, I'm the half full kind of guy. Like, so I really try to see, like, but I've been struggling with this one. I'm finding it very hard to find positives. Because as we discussed before, there are certain things that we want. Hire a specialist, hire a contractor, temporary guy, a person comes in full of skills, do the job for a short period of time. Thank you very much, because that's what that person does. Some highly skilled, short-term gigs, make a big impact in a short period and leave. But for the most common jobs that for example, when you think about building a company, at least the company that we are building, like, and I believe that a lot of companies are similar to ours in this respect. They have aspirations. They want to build. They have an idea. They want to build something bigger. They want people to come in to buy into the vision, to be part of that journey and stay with the company for longer. And when you are running a business in this way, and I truly believe that most companies, again, we might be different in many aspects, but in this side, I believe that most companies are very similar. They are in there for the long run, right? So they want people to grow with them and to be in that journey with them. And for those companies, it's difficult. I struggle to see a positive of someone that has high expectations and contribute very little. So that's how I see it. Right.
It's very, very nice of you, Jose, to try to play the devil's advocate and see the right thing. And I'm sure, like, if you, as you said, people have many circumstances and so on. But if you look at it from a cold light of day, you're gonna hire those kind of people because of a tactical reason. You're not gonna hire someone who's been hopping jobs for a very strategic reason, because they themselves don't actually view their job as a strategic thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's the where I would draw the distinction, is that there are many reasons to hire job hoppers, but they are tactical reasons.
So yeah, so the I knew that this would be a quite a long episode. Yeah, so I know that we need to wrap up. That is just like I'll do a Jose, right? So I'll throw in another topic for then wrap up. So it is almost the opposite now, right? So what about, how do we feel? Because this is a question that was asked on Twitter. How do we feel about someone that stays for many, many years in a company? I'm talking about 10 years or longer. So if we had that opposite, how we would see, would we have red flags or not? How would we perceive that?
It for me, it would be a red flag, but also on the other hand, it depends on the kind of role that they're performing, right? Because certain jobs allow you the diversity of roles and others don't, right? And maybe I'm excusing my own career, because I stayed at one job for 9 years, but it was a consultancy and I worked for many different clients. Now,
Well, you are at Codurance for 9 years now.
exactly. That's another thing. Yeah, exactly. Nine and then 4 years in between. I haven't had a long career really. Four different employers. But the funny thing is that when I left my consultancy after 9 years, I had exactly this fear. Am I stagnated? Right. And when I joined another company, which was definitely a very large organization where people were sitting on that very same chair for the past 20 years, I realized what stagnated actually meant. Right. So I would say that yes, it can be a problem, that if you are in a job for a very long time, that you've not had many different contexts. And yes, I would look at it and investigate, and then I would try to understand the experience, the way they worked, the way they traveled within that organization, to try to understand, have they had a diversity of experience, or, and that goes back to, like, is it like 15 years of experience or 1 year of experience fixed 15 times, or have they been doing the same job forever, right? Or the same role, the same place, the same team. That, of course, the opportunities for learning diminish over time. But there is a kind of a happy medium. You can be too uh, too short in a particular role, in a particular situation, or you can be there for too long as well.
Yeah. So for me, like, I would like to see the difference. I think that's what you were mentioning. Like, let's say someone stayed there for 10 years or even longer. What was the journey of that person in that company? Because we see that on LinkedIn every now and again. We go to someone in LinkedIn because, like, at the position that we have at Codurance, we tend to speak to people in high positions within our clients, right? So VPs of these or heads of that, and so on and so forth. And it's very normal when we go to business meetings, speaking to those people, when we look at their history, and they've been with the same company for a very long time, but then most of them would put on LinkedIn, for example, their progression. They were like 3 years doing one job and then 2 years doing another job. And then, so they were growing with the organization, right? So I find that very positive, really, really positive. Like, I think there is someone that takes a mission, they found a place that they like, they have their colleagues that they like, or the environment, or the industry, or technology, whatever that might be, but they found a place that they like, and they were willing to grow. They moved away from their comfort zone. They mastered. The way that I interpret that is like they were doing a job very well, and then they had the opportunity to fulfill a new position. So the company felt that they were a good candidate. They took the job. Probably they had potentially maybe that it was the only candidate available, or maybe they might have others. But regardless, this person took the job. And then this person stayed in that job for another few years. And then the organization felt that this person was also able to do a bigger job, and so on and so forth. So I would see that trajectory excellent. In fact, I would go even further than that. I wish I can provide that environment in our organization for a company like that to stay with us and grow with us like that. Someone that is looking for to find a good home and grow with the company and do what it takes and be willing to move around, be flexible, change, and do what is best for the company and enjoy that ride. I would love that. And then there is a scenario where the same person was staying, the person stayed for the same amount, 10 years or more, doing a very similar position. They didn't climb that much. I would still not see that as negative. And I'll tell you why. Not everyone. So when you think about, regardless of how you try to organize your company, as flat as you can try to make it, you will still have a pyramid effect. There will be some positions of authority or responsibilities, and they will be fewer than others, right? So there is just one team lead in a team. You cannot have, but you have more developers. There is just one person that, or a small group of people that will lead a client project, right? So there will always be fewer positions. So this will, regardless of how flat the pyramid is, but it's still a pyramid, yeah? So I would still see with good eyes someone that says, you know what, I don't have big ambitions in life. I just want to find a great place, find good friends, find a good environment where I can come in, do what I like. That might be whatever that might be, writing code, being a business analyst, a project manager, or whatever that person does, or working marketing and sales, whatever that person does, yeah, in recruitment. And so like, I just want a nice place to work with a great group of people. And I have other things in life that I'm interested also. But this person is a person normally to stay there for a long time, is a person that normally works well with a team, plays their job well, come in, do their job, go home. And companies should have a place for those people. I think that those people are important to have them as well, right? If everyone wants to be the next boss or the one that will change the world, it would be impossible to manage that. Imagine a football team with that where everyone wants the ball 100% of the time. It would just not work. See what I'm saying? So even in the worst case scenario of someone staying long in a company, I would still see in far better eyes than I would see someone job hopping.
We're at the end of this thing. There's so much to unpack in your last comment. Why do you do this to me? Why do you do this to me?
So yeah, but on the point, okay, so I would not rule this person out. This person I would bring to the interview regardless.
Okay.
The other ones I wouldn't.
That's fine. That's fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's probably okay.
We
So
could probably have another Fireside Chat about
okay,
some
I
of the stuff that
appreciate
you
that.
said in there.
So okay, so there are many other questions. I know that you have ones. Okay, so I think we should probably wrap up, right? So it's been an hour and 18 now. So Jose, you go first. You want to wrap up? Take your time because you might want to. Yeah.
No, I'll go more or less quickly. I think there are many reasons why you would want to do it. Overall, I think long term it's not gonna get you necessarily what you want. Like you need to be very clear on why you would do it. No, and I would say for a company, I mean that is just another data point that you have when you're evaluating a candidate. It's an important one. No, it could tell you some stuff like make sure that you address it. No, when you're interviewing and so on, but put enough let's say effort and care into your selection process so that you can weather out whether that is really a problem or not, because in the end you're trying to find the best person to do the job and to contribute to your company. And that again, it may be someone that has been hopping lately, no, or whatever. But it is on you. No, it's not a rule of thumb. Or no, avoid it or completely dismiss it. There are contexts in which yes, you should definitely avoid it, and there are contexts where you may want to look or at least consider that can be beyond just what is in the CV. Yeah, and that's a decision that as a company you need to do. No, and make sure to address it during the interviews and so on. There is no, we're talking about job hopping as a, they're not going to be staying with the company for long or whatever. That also happens with people that are not job hopping. So the risk is always there, right? So I guess that the message is you need to put a process in place that will get you out of the false positives, no, as much as possible, no, and just sometimes you may weed out some people that would have been good because you're using certain criteria, but what you really don't want is to get someone in that is not gonna work out, right? Whether that reason is tactical or strategic or whatever, that's another consideration that you need to have. No, and that's it.
Yeah, Mash.
Yeah, from my point of view, I think balance is important, right? Your career is, when you look at your career, forget about thinking about who's going to hire you and who's not going to hire you. Just thinking about purely from your own perspective, there needs to be a kind of diversity, but also there needs to be enough. You need to stay in places long enough for you to learn the things that only come with time. And if you're not going to give them the chance, then your own growth is going to be stunted in certain directions. So, staying in the same position is bad. And job hopping is also can be bad for your growth in terms of if you want to grow in a more rounded way in your career. So then people would also look at that and judge you by it, rightly or wrongly. They might get it completely wrong, but they will judge you by it. So be deliberate and try to minimize when you are applying for jobs, to try to find the right job. When you're being interviewed, remember that you're also interviewing. You should be looking at the company that you're applying for. You should be looking at it deeper than just going to a recruitment agent and who's just sending your CV to 80 different places and just getting you job interviews. You need to do your homework, find yourself a good fit, just like the company is also trying to find a good fit.
Yeah, I think this is a fantastic point, Mash. So for me, like, is you as an individual, you should do whatever you feel that is right for you. But at the same time, companies should also do what is right for them. And the same way that we probably should not just kind of judge people in their own options, companies have also their own preferences. And then ultimately, unemployment is a two-way street. Yeah. So you as a professional, you are looking for a place to work for, and you have your own criteria. You might be choosing a place that you want to spend many years of your life moving forward, or you just might be looking for the next thing that will give you some very specific opportunity to practice or to learn something, or you are specialized in one area and you want to do that kind of work. So there's nothing wrong in how you position yourself, but also companies will also, whatever the way that you position yourself as a professional, you will create like an image. You have an image as a professional. And the companies that are looking for professionals, they will look for people that you match that expectation. If your image resonates with that company, you might have a good deal, right? So if your image doesn't resonate, that company will not even call you for an interview, and that's okay as long as you understand that, right? So but I think that if you are changing jobs every 6 months, there is a consequence. There is a negative image, most negatively than not, unless that you are highly specialized professional that's your job. You do very short stunt, hardcore stuff. You come in, do something difficult that very few people can do, and you add a lot of value in a short period of time, then great. But that's the kind of work you sell. But I think that what you said, Mesh, that is very important, and quite a few people touched upon that, Fran and a few others. You as an individual, as a professional, you need to choose your jobs better, right? So do your research. Don't go to a recruiter. This is exactly what Mesh said. Don't go to a recruiter and say, I'm looking for a job, find me a job. Do your research. If you're really serious about your profession, I think that who was it? Alexon, you mentioned about craftsmanship. Like, what if we go to a place where they don't value craftsmanship? So if craftsmanship is an important aspect for you, then find the companies that value that. By the way, we do. But like, you create that criteria for you. Where would you be happy? What kind of company? Do that research, and then send a personalized email. Go to their website and apply. I can guarantee you, right? Unless that you are a completely misfit. Like, but if the company is hiring for something and you feel that, okay, I have some experience, if you go after those companies and send a direct message to them, like, you will get an interview. That will be crazy for a company not to give you an interview when you apply directly and you are a good match for that role, right? So do that, and then you probably will increase the chances of finding what you're looking for, and the companies you see you with good eyes, regardless of your employment state. That's another thing that is very important, because when you apply directly, even if you have like an employment history that you know that is a bit complicated, when you apply, put in your cover letter. I think that Geray, you mentioned that. Put in a cover letter when you apply and say, look, this is my current situation. That's what I'm looking for. This is what happened, and I really like what you are doing. I would love to have an opportunity to speak to you. 100% certain that they will call you for an interview. Yeah, or at least they will get back to you with a message. So that's how I would finish that. Okay, so if you liked all those chats, I would like to thank everyone that have been with us on YouTube, on LinkedIn. You sent your messages, your comments, you shared your experience. You really made this episode much better. This is the same for all the other episodes. It's awesome to have you all with us for almost an hour and a half now, sharing your questions, experience, and stuff. Thank you very much. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Put the thumbs up. It helps to take this video to other people as well. And I hope to see you next week again. Thank you very much, everyone. See you next time.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.